Good evening and welcome to Northbeat. I'm Leanie Lambrink. The high cost of living in the Northwest Territories is a perennial problem. More than 20 candidates in the upcoming territorial election have said it's one of the biggest challenges people in their regions face. The election is now a week away. Reporter Sydney Cohen talked to residents about the prices they pay to live in the territory and what the next group of MLAs could do to lighten their load.
Ask people on the streets of Yellowknife about how much it costs to live here, and they'll give you a simple answer.
Yeah, it's too much.
Paula Cialulu is on income support and rents a room in the city. When asked what the territorial government could do to help with the cost of living, his solution was simple too.
Build more affordable housing.
Alulu says he often thinks about moving south, and who can blame him? According to the NWT Bureau of Statistics, in 2021, the average Yellowknife household paid 28% more for food and 47% more for shelter than the average Canadian household. 16-year-old Daniel Hogeluk said several of his coworkers at a Yellowknife grocery store recently moved or are planning to move out of the territory, mainly because of the city's high prices.
It is hard trying to get a home here in Yellowknife, right? A lot of housing is expensive. Rent is very expensive from what I've heard. It is very hard and a lot of people are moving down south, especially from where I work, and it's quite tough.
The cost of living refers to how much money a person needs to afford a certain standard of living. It includes expenses for things like food, shelter, transportation, and healthcare. Of course, the cost of living is also tied to wages. And in general, incomes are higher in the Northwest Territories than in Canada overall. But for people on lower incomes, getting by is likely more of a struggle in the Northwest Territories than it is in the South, especially for people in more northern and remote communities where prices from gasoline to milk to dish soap are much higher.
In my region, it's kind of demoralizing. Like, you worry steady.
Jacobson says that for people in his riding, paying bills and putting food on the table is a constant struggle, and the carbon tax has made everything more expensive. He says the NWT's cost of living offset payments don't go far enough. As prices continue to rise, voters hope the next government will take meaningful steps to ease their burden, because the price of inaction could drive people out of the territory. Sydney Cohen, CBC News, Yellowknife.
Now, cost of living is just one of many issues surfacing during this election. In Hay River, one of the big issues is the NWT's lack of a treatment center. The CBC's Carla Ulrich spoke with people there about what they'd like to see.
Last year, Health Minister Julie Green said no to treatment centers in the territory, like other health ministers did before her. She said the effort to provide one treatment center for all the regions, languages, and cultures hasn't been successful, and that the territory already tried it 4 times. The Nazi JK Treatment Center in Hay River was one of those that failed. It closed its doors 10 years ago. Georgina Fabian used to work there. She said the center failed because it moved away from traditional healing practices and focused on hiring academics instead of people with lived experience. She added that with drug-related deaths on the rise in the region, the subject merits re-examination more than ever.
It's important because we want people to live. We want kids to be healthy. We want them to finish school. We want them to get interested in something.
Elder Beatrice Lapine, who has lived in Hay River all her life, says each region should have a treatment center.
You know, not one giant treatment center to fit everybody, but regional centers, and then developing aftercare programs. You know, if you're going to have a slip up or if you're going through a hard time, you can actually walk into a center there.
Both women say they hope the new health minister, whoever it is, will listen to what the community has to say. Carla Ulrich, CBC News, Fort Smith.
Looking further north, Nunakput residents want better representation. That's what candidates are hearing this campaign. Lucy Kuptana and Vince Teddy are competing for the vacant position. Incumbent MLA Jackie Jacobson is not running for re-election. The CBC's Des Loreen gives us a deeper look at the race in Nunakput.
Nunakput is one of the toughest ridings in the territory to campaign in. 3 of the 4 communities in the riding are fly-in only. This election, both candidates are making their best efforts to meet with as many people as possible. Lucy Kaptana says people have been telling her her region needs another MLA.
And one of the things I've heard in Paulatuck, and I've heard this in other communities too, is they want their own riding. They're always swallowed up by Tuck. And I mean, honestly, that's a big concern for them. Sax Harbor, Ulahaktuk, and Paulatuck, they always feel like it's always been an overwhelming Tuck vote because the population, right?
A lack of proper medical services was another concern heard by the candidates. Vince Teddy says he heard from many people about the lack of care for elders on medical travel.
Elders, they need better care and medical escorts to help them when they travel far. So I know medical services is a big one for Nunakput, and I want to do something about it. I want to help our people.
Both candidates told CBC they were going to visit every community in their riding before election night. The Nunakput riding consists of Paulatuck, Sax Harbor, Tuktoyaktuk, and Ulahaktuk. Des Loreen, CBC News, Inuvik.
In one Nunavik community, a doctor's social media posts are pointing to a possible crisis. Dr. Steve Arnold declined to speak to CBC, but he's been vocal on social media, calling out violence in Haneksualukjuak. He wrote there's been 6 stabbings and multiple drug issues in the last month. He says that's changed his perception of what used to be the community of choice for many nurses and doctors. The hamlet's mayor recognizes there are issues. She says there have been many efforts made to curb the violence. That includes awareness campaigns and on local radio and community events. She also says a recent event was really well attended.
The community gym was full, big gym full. Nobody was drunk. People are happy. Like these are, I hate to say, maybe it's a little bit more than isolated incidents, but we do have also part of the population that have serious issues of alcohol.
Imodluk says solutions must be a community effort, and she urges everyone to work together. Former Nunavut politician Jack Anarhuak has been charged with impaired driving. The news comes a day after Anarhuak resigned from Iqaluit City Council. Police say he faces charges of operating a vehicle while impaired and operating a vehicle with a blood alcohol level of more than 80 milligrams. That's the legal limit. Our CMP arrested him last Saturday at the scene of a collision in Iqaluit. This is Anarhuak's 3rd time being charged with impaired driving. In 2018, he was sentenced to 30 days in jail for impaired driving. He was convicted on a similar charge in 2013. Anarhuak is scheduled to show up in court on January 25th. A 24-unit apartment building is coming down in Whitehorse, but the Yukon Housing Corporation says its replacement will be bigger and better. Ryder Apartments has stood in downtown Whitehorse since 1977. It was home to a number of Yukoners over the years who needed affordable housing. It may not look like it, but inside, demolition has already begun. The building contains asbestos, which means it'll take weeks of careful effort to dismantle it safely. Lester Balsley is the Director of Capital Development and Maintenance with Yukon Housing. He says the structure had fallen into disrepair and would have required significant upgrades.
A lot of the building systems were in need of major upgrades and renovations. The plumbing and mechanical systems, the fire alarm system, the intercom system, and just the wiring and general condition of the building, the energy efficiency. Our initial internal estimates to do all that work were quite substantial. And the site was underutilized. We can fit just about twice as many units on with our projected new development than what was on the site previously.
Balsley says it wasn't worth it to update the existing structure. He sees potential for more density and drastic change on the downtown lot. The design and construction of the new subsidized housing project is currently out for tender. Yukon Housing hopes tenants will be able to move into the new building by the fall of 2026. While that affordable housing project in Whitehorse is well underway, housing dollars in other parts of the country are stirring up some controversy. The federal government is giving out billions to cities and towns to encourage the construction of new affordable homes. Some of Canada's premiers want to stop Ottawa from making funding deals directly with municipalities, and they're threatening to bring in legislation. The CBC's Marina von Stackelberg has this story.
Canada's premiers say any federal money to build housing should go through them first. They're threatening to pass laws to prevent Ottawa from funding cities directly.
There's a shared concern that there is a federal government that is increasingly looking at the potential political benefits, for lack of a better term, of circumventing the provinces and landing in a Toronto or Vancouver and dropping a housing program strictly for political gain.
It comes as Ottawa has begun cutting deals with cities to build more homes fast. Up for grabs, $4 billion.
And if you're coming into a province with projects, then we'll ask, I guess, to be involved. But if that's not working, then we'll legislate that we need to be involved.
The premiers want what Quebec has. A law there says money from Ottawa for municipalities must flow through the provincial government first. Canada's housing minister says this is the first time he's heard the premier's concerns.
I see no reasonable excuse to stop working directly with municipalities if we're actually achieving progress with the strategy that we've adopted.
The federal money is contingent on cities changing their zoning bylaws to allow for denser housing that can be approved more quickly.
The sooner that we can get the funds from the federal government in a manner that's easy and quick is what I'm looking for.
Halifax's mayor says Nova Scotia's government has slowed down federal funding for transit before. He doesn't want to see that happen with housing.
The province didn't match the money, and it took them 8 months or so just to pass through the money from the federal government. So does it slow things down if you go through the province? Of course it does.
Again, just as we're starting to get momentum, just as the housing accelerator was starting to show progress, we now have provinces trying to block it. And I think that's unfortunate.
Hundreds of applications for the federal money have been submitted. 7 deals have been reached. The housing minister says he won't let anything slow him down from building desperately needed housing fast. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
A critical report about Canada's greenhouse gas targets. The country's environment watchdog says the federal government continues to fall short of its promise. In a new audit released today, it says Ottawa's current plan will not get Canada to its 2030 goal. David Thurton has the details.
The window for achieving Canada's climate goals is closing, and a new report says Ottawa is set to miss the mark.
What we're saying is the measures in the current plan are not sufficient to meet the target.
Environment Commissioner Jerry DeMarco says his latest audit continues to sound the alarm. Canada is not on track, he says, to meet its 2030 greenhouse gas emission reduction targets. The target commits Ottawa to achieving at least a 40% emissions reduction below 2005 levels by the end of this decade. Government modeling shows Canada is projected to have at least a 6% shortfall.
They can't just have a hope to fill those in with assumptions and so on. They'll need measures that will actually fill that gap.
I agree with the Commissioner. We need to do more. We need to do it faster, and that's exactly what our government is doing.
Canada's Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault says Ottawa will soon bring in a cap on oil and gas emissions and stricter rules to stop methane gas leaks.
We can't go back. We can't do like Pierre Poilievre say and show up here to this microphone and say, I have no plan to work on climate change.
Conservatives say today's audit makes it clear Canada won't achieve its targets and the Liberal carbon pricing system has failed.
Well, just this morning, the Environment Commissioner confirmed that this government's so-called climate plan is nothing more than a punishing tax on heat, gas, and groceries.
The Environment Commissioner says carbon pricing has the ability to achieve deep emissions cuts if it is strict enough. And although we might not be on track to achieve our emissions targets, there is still time, he says, to course correct. David Thurton, CBC News, Ottawa.
October 11th, the most unforgettable day of the year. A message from the Government of Canada.
The Territory is choosing its next government, and CBC has everything you need to know before you cast your ballot. Get the stories and promises that shape the campaign on television, radio, and digital. NWT votes on CBC.
You are constantly on the move, and so are we, making sense of the moments that matter together.
Looks like things are maybe winding down.
Asking what, why, when.
To the center of the biggest stories, meeting the people living them.
Thank you for letting us be here. What's your situation?
Making sense of our world.
How are we going to be part of this solution?
With you and for you.
Connectedness, groundedness.
I'm Adrienne Arsenault. This is The National.
Canadians of generations have been miseducated.
But we don't talk about that.
We are here. We have been here.
These stories are us.
Yeah, dog!
Oh, an absolute classic.
All right.
Let's go! Yeah! This is The National.
Every week, the issues that matter to Canadians.
These are acts of desperation.
Connecting politics to people.
Some people have lost everything.
Join me for Rosemary Barton Live.
Nunavut's leaders are in the hot seat this week over elder care. MLAs are halfway through their term. That means it's time for them to review all the promises the government made at the start of this legislature and to question cabinet ministers on what's been done. One of those promises was the creation of a strategy for elders. That was supposed to be a response to petitions and protests from Nunavummiut calling for better elder care in the territory so elders didn't have to go south for long-term care. MLAs pressed ministers on when the plan would be done and why it's taken so long. Premier PJ Achiagok says consultations for the plan are complete.
One of the delays was that we had to go back to the elders to make sure that we included all that we discussed or whether we missed out on any of the information. And I think we're all looking forward to this strategy.
Achiagok says he hopes the strategy will be released in December. The midterm review runs until Thursday. Aurora College in the Northwest Territories has stopped taking international student applications for now. That's because it got a wave of submissions at the start of the month and it's struggling to catch up. Officials say this YouTube video is partly to blame.
If you've been looking for cheapest colleges in Canada, this is definitely one of the colleges you want to be looking at. This college is called Aurora College, located in the Northwest Territories of Canada.
The user, Chorkor Millionaire, has videos about immigrating to Canada. In this one, he says Aurora College is cheap and doesn't have application fees. It's amassed 28,000 views since being posted in late July. Officials say the video misrepresents details about financial assistance.
We have references to how students should budget for their programs up on our website, and part of it is, student financial assistance will cover, usually a portion of your funding, but not everything. And that got taken out of context from people who don't understand what student financial assistance is to be that this is a scholarship that's going to pay for how much of your funding. And so things like that, since we're marketing to our northern audience, I think would understand what that is. But people from outside they've taken something that is out of context.
Tilly says once Aurora College opened up for applications, they received more than 1,200 applicants within 24 hours. It pushed the capacity of the college's online system. She says they're figuring out how to sort through them all. Tilly says Aurora College is working on its website, making sure its messaging about financial assistance is clear. She also emphasized that only international applications are on pause. Northern residents can still apply. A new cultural center is almost ready to open its doors in Cambridge Bay. It's called Kugelak, which means little creek. The purpose of the space is to preserve Inuit language and culture. The building will be run by the Kitikmeot Heritage Society. The society hopes to host the center's first cultural program in January.
We're very excited, and like this is a dream for their building, where it's coming to place now that they'll have a work area to conduct and to promote and carry on our cultural programming.
Once the cultural campus opens, there will still be some construction happening. The society hopes that work will be finished by May. It's been a pretty dry start to winter in Whitehorse, but that has not stopped athletes at the Yukon Cross Country Ski Club. Raf Sanfaruk-Jugal tells us how the club is helping its members get out on the tracks.
There hasn't been much snow in Whitehorse yet, and Cross Country Yukon is having to get creative with about $15,000 worth of man-made snow.
We're super lucky to have this track of man-made snow. 10 days ago it got really cold, and our volunteers were able to blow the snow, and with the help from the Whitehorse Cross Country Ski Club and the city of Whitehorse, they spread this snow into about a kilometer track that covers the stadium.
And training is in full swing.
We just came out of an intensity block, which is about 2 weeks of just going pretty much all out, almost every practice.
They're hoping to hone their strengths, and every second in the snow counts. Athletes from around the country are already training, and this could give Yukon athletes a competitive edge.
So I'm stronger and faster in the skate technique, but my technique probably looks a lot better in classic because I've practiced that maybe a bit more.
It takes a while to get comfortable back on skis. They'll be racing at the end of this month, so that's in 3 weeks. So every hour on snow that they can be on it is such an advantage just to get in race shape.
The coach says there'll be about 15 athletes heading to Silver Star in BC for the opening Canada Cup races. Raf Sanfaruk-Jugal, CBC News, Whitehorse.
European astronomers have released the first images from the Euclid Space Telescope. It was launched in July from Florida on a 6-year groundbreaking mission. It was looking for two very mysterious components in the universe. The European Space Agency says these photos of the Perseus cluster are the sharpest of their kind. Euclid's objective is to gather a better understanding of dark matter and dark energy. They're the hidden forces believed to make up 95% of the universe. Euclid's wide field of view can capture images and record data from an area more than 100 times bigger than the Webb telescope. It's designed to monitor millions of galaxies up to 10 billion light years away. There is a lot of information in that story that I just cannot wrap my head around. So maybe we should end the show there. For news anytime, head to cbc.ca/north. We're going to leave you with a look at tomorrow's weather. Thanks for watching. I'm Leanie Lambrink. Have a good night.
You're not a millennial.
Yeah, well, Dr. Dre's not a doctor. I feel like such an imposter.
You need money to survive.
He had something to hide.
Try typing with your thumbs.
What do you call it?
It's called a BlackBerry.
Huh. We call them crackberries.
There's a serial killer on the loose.
2 attacks in a week.
Go on. Everybody's got something to hide.
We're not gonna be here forever, right? Makes me want to make some changes.
Your family can't take much more.
Think you're a better driver when you're high? Think again. No alcohol, no drugs, no victims. A message from Mad Canada.
What Canadian animal is bigger than a school bus? Eats tiny critters but doesn't have any teeth. Likes to swim in cold ocean waters in the summer. And feeds milk to its baby calf. If you guessed the right whale, you're correct. These giant whales live in busy parts of the ocean, so people need to be careful when driving boats near them. To learn more about the North Atlantic right whale, visit our website at hww.ca.
I want my children home where they should be.
You'd go to jail if you don't sign.
There's gonna come a time you'll feel the darkness. You don't let them win.
Your vote, your way. Click, stream, watch, listen. Get the facts before you head to the polls. NWT votes on CBC.
Our ancestors came here from France to build a better life. We lived here happily for generations. Until the British decided they wanted our land. The men were called to a meeting and then imprisoned. They demanded we swear an oath to their king and took everything, regardless. We were forced from Acadie, the only home we knew. Mon Acadie n'existera plus.
From 1755 to 1763, over 10,000 Acadians were ripped from their homeland. Despite this, Acadian culture endures in Atlantic Canada.
I understand that you're struggling emotionally.
Sure you want to do this?
I mean, it's research, right? You need to stop asking me for things I can't give you. You've done it my whole life.
Every week, the issues that matter to Canadians.
These are acts of desperation.
Connecting politics to people.
Some people have lost everything.
Join me for Rosemary Barton Live.
We have an incredible show lined up for you tonight.
Wow!
There is no one Inuit word for art. We say it is to transfer something from the real to the unreal. My grandmother taught me how to survive. At first, we sold bags and crafts. And now galleries all over the world present my work, from Paris to Tokyo. But all the art I made was for my family. My children had to go to school, so we moved to Cape Dorset. This was the start of a new way of life for us. I am an owl, and I am a happy owl. I am the light of happiness, and I am a dancing, happy owl.
As a founder of Cape Dorset's famed printmaking co-op, Kanuiwak Ashevak introduced Inuit art to the world.